Thamba is still just grooming himself and taking it very easy at this stage. He's not in any way in a hurry. I think he's had his little meal for the day. It doesn't look like a big meal given that he's not massively full, so I think it was just something small that he managed to get. And, well, at least it's going to sustain him and start giving nutrients that he needs. And he doesn't look in any way in bad condition. He's a little slender, but he's at that awkward phase too, where he's going from kind of cub to sub-adult, and so he is going to be a little bit more on the slender side, and he'll then slowly bulk up and get larger as time goes on. But his paws are definitely, and his ears are not looking nearly as big as they used to in relation to the rest of his body. He's starting to at least grow into both of those, which is great news. But while I'm sitting here just now, and while we were away from us, I can hear a kudu's alarm calling straight north of me. So I'm pretty sure, if I had to hazard a guess, that must be Hosana somewhere north, because he was left going north from Treehouse Dam towards Philemon's Cut Line, and that's where that sound is coming from. So it's coming from around Philemon's Cut Line area. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Hosana is somewhere that way, maybe heading up towards the dam, which would be quite nice as well. So look out for him this evening. I wouldn't imagine he'll be there today, or this morning, but by this evening maybe he'll arrive in that area. Now, you can see the grooming process that goes on after they've fed. They spend a lot of time grooming their front paws and their facial area, and that's because that's the area that's going to be covered with all kinds of little bits. You'll find that they feed, and bits of food and fur and all kinds of things gets on there, so that's why they groom heavily the front paw sections as well as the facial areas, just to try and get that coat back into good condition. At the end of the day, they don't want the blood or any bits to dry on them. They want to be able to get to a situation where they can be nice and clean for when they move around. So nice to sit with this little guy though. He's such a chilled cat, and I don't even think he's looked at us once since we've been here. Even when we repositioned, he didn't really glance at us much. He's just been in his own world, having a little groom and enjoying his little piece of shade that he's tucked himself into over there. He's got a situation where he's now really quite comfortable, and once we leave here, and if he stays in this area, I wonder if he might head back to that carcass. But if he doesn't head back to the carcass and we decide to move on later, I want to go and check exactly what it was that he killed. I have a funny feeling it's a little baby dyke or a scrub hare. That's what my feeling is. I don't think it's anything too big, but he definitely had plucked something. And luckily we stopped for that, because if it wasn't for that, I think I might have driven right past him. I didn't even notice him until after I had looked at the fur that had been plucked. So it was just a big pile of fur, and that kind of led my eye towards where he was, which is fantastic. Oh, but he is grooming himself properly. Stephen, difficult to say. Unfortunately, it's almost the sort of same as how long is a piece of string. In terms of how far he's going to go is all dependent on how far he gets pushed. So if he moves around and other males push him and push him and push him, he might end up going far, or he might end up landing his bum in the butter and getting a territory inside this area. At the end of the day, Mvula, Tingana are on the older side of life, and so there's going to be areas that are going to open up in the next few years, and maybe he just gets lucky and he'll stick around. Sometimes they can move quite far. I've had situations where leopards have gone a long way. So there was a leopard called Matimba, which was one of Safari's last boy that she had. He ended up being a dominant male all the way up in Ingala, which is straight line as the crow flies, 50 kilometers away. So it's a very, very, very long way away from where we are currently, as opposed to somebody like Quarantine, who's gone from Quarantine just to the east on Torchwood, which is probably no more than a kilometer away, is the fringe of his territory. So it depends on the males. It depends on what competition he's got. It depends on how he gets pushed, and whether or not once he gets pushed once, if he's going to get pushed multiple times and then separate out. So really difficult to say where he's going to go and what the average is. There really isn't an average. At the end of the day, they all get moved around in different ways, just depending on the different densities within that particular population and that particular area. So their males might distribute a lot further here in the northern and central Sabi Sands due to high density than they do even in the Manyeleti, where there's maybe a lower density because of the higher population of lions. So it's just interesting, and there's no real average that's given as to where they go. It's a lot of environmental factors that play a part, like I say, a density of these guys, as well as food, water, prey availability, that will all affect how far they end up distributing from their natal range. Oh, look at those eyes. He has the most striking eyes, and it almost seem to be becoming more vibrant, much like Hosana. Hosana seems to be getting a lot more vibrance in his eyes. And when I say that, I mean they generally, with leopards and lions, their eyes actually dim a little bit as they get older. So they start off quite brightly coloured, and then they get a little bit more dim. But with him and Hosana, it almost seems the opposite way around, is that they're starting to almost get a richer colour that's forming, and he really does have very striking eyes. I suppose Hosana too, now that they're going that more orange colour, is very striking as well. The way that they look when he kind of stares at you is amazing, and particularly at sunset. Hosana's eyes seem to light up around sunrise and sunset when they catch that orangey light. They just become that much better.